In the cradle of civilization, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the gods were more than distant figures in the sky. They were the very forces that shaped life, ruled nature, and determined the fate of mortals. Among them stood Inanna, the Sumerian goddess of love, fertility, and war. To later cultures, she would be known as Ishtar, a name that still echoes in myth and memory. She was a goddess of contradictions, both a nurturer and destroyer, a lover and a warrior, a bringer of life and of death. Origins of a goddess. The name Inanna likely derives from Ninanok, meaning Lady of Heaven. Her later Akkadian name, Ishtar, may trace back to the West Semitic god, Atta, associated with the planet Venus. Venus itself, appearing as both morning star and evening star, reflects her dual nature. The star of war at dawn, the star of love at dusk. Her worship was ancient and far-reaching. In Uruk, Nippur, and Lagash, temples to Inanna were among the richest and most splendid. The most famous was the Inna, or House of Heaven, in Uruk. Originally dedicated to Anu, the sky god, it became hers. A symbolic act told in myth as if she claimed it by force. By the time of Sargon of Akkad in the 24th century BCE, Inanna and Ishtar were worshipped as one. Sargon himself credited his rise to the favor of Inanna, saying the goddess walked before him in battle. Worship and rituals. Inanna's cult was as complex as the goddess herself. Priestesses and gala priests, some of whom adopted female names and dress, served in her temples. This suggests that her worship embraced gender fluidity, mirroring her own paradoxical identity. Kings often enacted the sacred marriage ritual, taking on the role of her divine husband, Demused the shepherd. Through ritual union with Inanna's high priestess, they symbolically ensured the fertility of the land and the legitimacy of their reign. Ordinary worshippers made simpler offerings, cakes, oils, and clay figurines of voluptuous women dedicated to her. Symbols of her power included the 8-pointed star, the rosette, and the lion. The dove, too, was hers, a gentler reminder of her connection to love and fertility. Myths of Inanna. What sets Inanna apart from many deities is the sheer variety of her myths. She is not confined to a single role. Instead, she appears as innocent maiden, cunning trickster, reckless destroyer, devoted lover, and vengeful goddess. In Inanna prefers the farmer. She is courted by two suitors, a farmer and a shepherd. At first she favors the farmer, but after persuasion she chooses Demused, the shepherd. It is a light-hearted story, showing her as youthful and uncertain, not yet the fierce goddess of war. In the halupu tree, she plants a tree in her garden to fashion a throne and bed. But the tree is infested. A serpent coils in its roots, a bird nests in its branches, and the demon Lilith takes refuge. Inanna cannot drive them out herself. She turns to Gilgamesh, who defeats them and gifts her the wood. Here, the powerful goddess is portrayed as helpless, a reminder that even divinities could be vulnerable. In Inanna and Enki, she outwits the god of wisdom. During a feast, she plies him with drink and persuades him to give her the meh, the sacred powers of civilization. These include kingship, law, music, and craftsmanship. Once she has them, she flees to Uruk. Enki realizes what he has done and tries to stop her, but she prevails. The myth reflects how her cult rose to prominence, claiming authority once held by older gods. In Inanna and Ebi, she is defiant and destructive. She demands worship from a mountain that refuses her. When her father Anu advises against violence, she ignores him and destroys the mountain in a storm of fury. The story highlights her pride and her dangerous independence. Inanna's wrath. Inanna's vengeance could be terrifying. In Inanna and Shukalatuda, a gardener rapes her as she sleeps beneath a tree. In response, she unleashes plague and drought across the land, searching relentlessly for the culprit. Though the gods beg her to relent, she will not stop until Shukalatuda is found and executed. Her destructive power appears again in the Epic of Gilgamesh. She offers herself to the hero, promising him wealth and kingship if he becomes her lover. But Gilgamesh knows her reputation. He lists the fates of her former lovers, all ruined by her passion. Insulted, Ishtar unleashes the bull of heaven upon Uruk. When Gilgamesh and Enkidu kill it, she curses them and threatens to release the dead from the underworld. Even rejected, her rage shakes heaven and earth. Descent to the underworld. Her most famous myth is the descent of Inanna. Inanna resolves to visit the underworld, ruled by her sister Ereshkigal. Some say she goes to mourn the death of Ereshkigal's husband. Others suggest she seeks power over death itself. At each of the 7 gates of the underworld, she is forced to remove one article of clothing or jewelry, her crown, her staff, her jewels, until she stands naked and powerless. At last she confronts Ereshkigal and dares to sit on her throne. The judges of the underworld condemn her. She is killed and hung on a hook. For 3 days and nights, the world suffers her absence. Crops do not grow, animals do not mate, desire itself ceases. Finally, her loyal servant petitions the gods. Only Enki responds, creating 2 small, genderless beings who slip into the underworld. They empathize with Ereshkigal's cries of pain, and in gratitude she grants them a wish. They ask for Inanna's body, and with the food and water of life, they restore her. But escape from the underworld demands a price. A substitute must take her place. Inanna searches and finds Dumusid, her husband, sitting on a throne, clothed in fine garments, showing no signs of mourning. Enraged, she condemns him to descend in her place. Later, his sister pleads for mercy, and a compromise is made. Dumusid will spend half the year in the underworld, while his sister takes his place for the other half. Thus the seasons are explained. Fertility when Dumusid returns, barrenness when he is gone. A goddess of contradictions, Inanna was not a simple figure. She was a goddess of contradictions, at once creative and destructive, tender and ruthless, dependent and commanding. She embodied the paradoxes of human nature, magnified to divine scale. For the Sumerians and Akkadians, she represented both the passions that drive humanity and the forces that threaten to consume it. She was worshipped with devotion, feared with awe, and remembered in stories that shaped later traditions. From Ishtar of Babylon to Aphrodite of Greece and Venus of Rome, echoes of Inanna's legacy reverberated across the ancient world. Closing, Inanna's myths are among the richest and most human in Mesopotamian tradition. She was not a distant goddess of perfection, but a reflection of human passion, ambition, love, and rage. To her followers, she was the queen of heaven and earth, a goddess who could bless with fertility or destroy with war, a being whose contradictions made her timeless. And so, from the ruins of Uruk to the pages of myth, the name of Inanna still endures.